If you've ever tried to break a stubborn habit using pure willpower, you know exactly how exhausting it feels. You are effectively arm wrestling yourself, except your other self never gets tired. We are going to stop fighting those feelings directly. Instead, you will build a customized 3-step blueprint, what we call the UDM system, to dismantle your habit at its exact source. To prepare for this exercise, grab a pen and a piece of paper. At the very top, write down your specific target habit. Relying on sheer willpower fails because it attacks the physical symptom, the craving, instead of fixing the specific mental input that creates that craving in the first place. Step 1 is setting our psychological baseline. Underneath your habit, write the phrase, "My brain is not broken." Think of your mind as 2 separate entities. You are the conscious observer sitting in an isolated control room, and your unconscious mind is a robot out in the world. The robot controls your physical actions, but it is completely blind. It relies entirely on you to tell it what is happening. In this flowchart, the conscious observer sends an imagined idea to the unconscious robot. The robot acts only on these images. As the diagram expands, the robot receives the trigger, chemically releases a feeling like anxiety, and forces the physical behavior. Your cravings are not a biological malfunction. When you feel an intense urge, your brain is simply executing the instructions you fed it perfectly. The instructions that trigger those intense urges are called experiential imagining. These are the sensory-rich thoughts, the anticipated taste, the physical touch, or the specific relief you expect, that flood your mind before you act. Take a look at this photograph. Focus on the woman on the left. Her posture and physical engagement with the cigarette capture the lived sensory experience. When you recall memories using your physical senses, you send a direct command to your unconscious to create a craving. Now we apply the U in UDM, which stands for understand. On your paper, write down the specific sensory thought you experience. Do not judge yourself. You aren't evaluating your character, you are simply auditing your mental code. Identifying this sensory thought isolates the precise moment where you lose control. It reveals the exact instruction your brain uses. Simply telling your unconscious no fails because it still processes the sensory picture you are actively imagining. To stop the craving, you have to replace the picture itself. We do this using intellectual visualization. Think about an uninteresting medicine, like a penicillin pill. You understand what it is objectively, but you don't imagine what it tastes like. You associate it with zero sensory desire. Notice the difference on screen. On the left is an experiential view, a lit cigarette held in the first person. On the right is an intellectual view, a sterile, third-person perspective of an unlit cigarette next to a pill bottle. Stripping away the sensory data eliminates the desire. This brings us to D for decide. On your paper, write down a new, boring, third-person description. If your habit was smoking, you might describe a cigarette clinically as a white cylinder of dry leaves. By forcing your brain to process the object intellectually rather than experientially, you short-circuit its ability to release compulsion chemicals entirely. The final step is M for monitor. The next time a craving hits, actively catch the old experiential thought and swap it out for your new intellectual description. As you do this, you will experience delay and momentum. Just like a heavy freight train sliding forward after the brakes are applied, your mind requires time to slow down and process new instructions. The most common point of failure is panicking or punishing yourself when the craving returns. When that happens, simply and calmly apply your intellectual image again. Early failures are a requirement of the learning process. Persistence is how you dig new neural pathways and overwrite the old tracks. Review the paper in front of you. You now possess a complete UDM map. You have identified the sensory cause, established the intellectual replacement, and set a monitoring strategy. Breaking your habit is no longer a physical battle of endurance. It is an administrative task of updating your brain's instructions. Keep this piece of paper nearby. At the very first sign of stress or boredom, deploy your new intellectual thought before the craving has a chance to build. Mastering this sequence hands control back to your conscious mind. You turn a compulsion into a quiet, easily dismissed thought.